Britain's Prime Minister had called in her top soldier, Field Marshal Sir John Harding. He sent him as governor to break the Cypriot terror.
Of course, I know the brutal methods of EOKA, but at least they are effective towards achieving their ends. How wrong they are. EOKA are a small minority, trying to force their views and opinions on all the peoples of Cyprus by fear and bloodshed. It is EOKA which is preventing you, the people of Cyprus, from governing yourselves.
Harding set out to crush EOKA. He believed that when he had freed the Cypriots from the terrorist threat, new moderate leaders would come forward to help him govern Cyprus. Harding's first step was to strengthen the police, now thoroughly infiltrated by EOKA. He created an auxiliary police force recruited from the 20% minority of the population, the Turkish Cypriots.
We were against EOKA. Britain was against EOKA. Therefore, we had a joint interest in seeing that EOKA did not succeed.
The only thing on which I insisted very strongly with Marshal Harding was that
the only way to advancement open to a poor peasant boy. At 13, he had joined the monks at Kiko, the most powerful monastery in Cyprus. All Makarios's predecessors had talked of Enosis, but Makarios was different. He was determined he would be the one to achieve it. He would consider no alternative and no delay. He transformed the Enosis movement into a major political force. The British could not understand how a priest came to be so involved in politics.
Well, the Archbishop of Cyprus is elected by the whole Greek people of the island in two capacities. To be both their religious and national leader.
He had political opponents too, the communists and a moderate party in the town of Limassol, who, though they wanted Enosis, did not believe Makarios's hard line was the right way to get it.
Makarios called us at the Limassol bishopric, and he tried to explain to us that we must not oppose union. We have explained that we were not opposing union. Far.
Makarios's disappointment and anger were shared by the Greek Cypriots in Nicosia.
I was quite young. I saw the demonstration. I decided to follow the demonstrators. I started to throw stones at the police.
On the 9th of March 1956, the governor deported Archbishop Makarios. EOKA immediately ordered a young...
I am opposed to the use of violence, but at the same time, I am opposed to the British policy which has provoked violence. However, I don't think wise to condemn violence in public, because I understand that a Greek section of the people is in favor of this method.
The British were baffled by the failure of this man of God to condemn violence. They didn't realize he was EOKA's founder and its commander-in-chief. On the 9th of March 1956, the governor deported Archbishop Makarios. EOKA immediately ordered a young waiter in Government House to put into effect a plan to kill the governor. He was given a time bomb, which he smuggled past the governor's tight security, strapped to his stomach with a lady's corset, borrowed from one of EOKA's women couriers.
I get immediately to the bedroom of the governor. I closed the door, and immediately I took the bomb out of my corset, and I put it in the mattress under the bed. You see, they were sleeping on separate beds. They were nearby the beds, but they were separate, 2 beds, you know. And closed the beds, just to kill both of them. Not to have her to cry after him, you know. I went down, and we served the governor. I was thinking, I was thinking that it was the last lunch he had in Cyprus, because he was going to die, you know.
I always get up very late, I'm sorry to say, in the morning, and I had only just got up and nobody had done the room or made the bed or anything. And one of the soldiers came in, opened the doors between the bedrooms and said, "There's a bomb in His Excellency's bed." And I said, "Oh, don't be silly, of course there can't be. He was sleeping on it. We had twin beds pushed up together." I said he was sleeping on it all night, and so he said, "There is, you better come and have a look at it." So I went and looked, and there was this thing. I'd never seen a bomb before, but there was this bomb there, and I very nearly touched it with flicked it with my fingers, and I said, "Well, it must be a dud, because it was there all night." A young officer, who was very brave, put the bomb on a shovel. He'd walked right through Government House, which was quite big, and he'd put it in a sandbag pit, and it was striking 12, and it went off 3 minutes after he'd put it in, with the most sickening explosion that broke all the windows outside of the house.
I put the radio on, and I was waiting to hear the news. And the radio said that His Excellency the Governor visited Famagusta. I said, "God, my God, he's alive," I said.
Nefertos Sophocleos became a wanted man and was taken to the mountains to join the guerrilla bands under the EOKA commander, Colonel George Grivas. It was he who had ordered the governor's assassination. The governor was determined to catch Grivas. He had been promised all the troops and equipment he asked for. In June 1956, he got very close.
The anti-terrorist campaign in Cyprus reaches a new stage with the combing of 400 square miles of mountain forests in the southwest of the island. Mortars are used for the first time in the Cyprus emergency as British troops draw the net tighter around EOKA's hideouts. Somewhere in the thick forest in front of them are EOKA leaders with a big price on their heads, including, it is believed, the chief of them all, George Grivas.
The British troops pressed hard on the heels of Grivas. One patrol even came upon him washing. He fled, leaving his diary and his cardigan and spectacles behind. The EOKA chief just managed to slip through the closing net at night. For the next 2.5 years, he directed his...
It was a strong feeling, really. I couldn't be out.
What you need to be a member of this organization was that you must be, at that time, a right wing, belong to right-wing party. I mean, right-wing you are all except the leftists, the communists. I mean, they check your character. I mean, let's say if you were going around in bars, drinking or having affairs with people that didn't, I mean, have a good name, they wouldn't choose you to be a member of the organization. You must have a good character.
I swear in the name of the Holy Trinity that I shall work with all my power for the liberation of Cyprus from the British yoke, sacrificing for this even my life.
You have to take a Bible and put your hand on it and take the oath. You keep your secret. You tell nothing to anybody, not to your parents, not to your relatives, not to anybody.
If you betrayed your friends, you are a traitor. And it was very difficult for somebody who betrayed his country.
They would kill you, or, I mean, you could not come out of that.
I had a problem with my relatives, more with my father, that he thought that I was a moral person, a moral girl, because I used to go out with men And after I asked my leader of my district to break the oath and say to my father that I fight for my country and not just to amuse myself. And when I told him, he was so glad and moved that he gave me his blessing, but he lost his sleep. They use, not all the time, but most of the times, the women, because when they shoot a person or a traitor, the men, they gave the pistols to the women that they were somewhere near. And so when the British soldiers searched the boys, they didn't find the pistols because we had.
When you took the guns, where did you put them?
On me, in my back or my belt, or in our breast. It was a safe way, we thought, at that time.
And that we found was a very difficult problem. And they had some successes that way, if you call murder being successful.
Harding's first problem was to get the information to find EOKA. The killers melted into the population, who were afraid to talk. They knew what EOKA would do to a traitor.
He revealed to the enemy the hideout I was living, and I decided and I executed him.
What did you say to him?
Nothing.
What happened?
I didn't go by myself personally. I sent some boys to kill him. He was shot in the head, dead. No explanation, no messing, no... If you're a traitor, you have to die. That's all. It was clear to all of us.
Why didn't he try to escape?
To go where? To go where? Nobody would help him. Since you are a traitor, either you have to commit suicide or EOKA will kill you. I'll perform without question all the orders of the organization, however difficult or dangerous this may be.
They ordered me to execute a Greek Cypriot. In the main road, a very busy road. And believe me, I pissed drop by drop in my underwear, because it was the first time I had a pistol. Very soon he arrived. I aim, I fire twice. For a long time I saw this person in my dreams, even when I didn't sleep, I saw him, his face in front of me. Well, it was the first experience anyway. But later you get used to, you can say that after a lot of training and after some more killings, you get used to killing.
Of course, I cannot say but night that for sure that all these people that we killed, they were, traitors. Some of them maybe not purposely, but because they speak a lot.
To killing.
Mountains was the hideout used by Avsentio and his 4 guerrillas. A cave whose entrance was cleverly concealed in the hillside. On the 3rd of March 1957, it was discovered by British soldiers. So confident were the British that they invited newsreel cameras to film this important capture.
It was morning, about 6 o'clock, from the movement of the troops, British troops, and from the noise of the helicopter, we suspected that our cave must be betrayed.
The British shouted to the guerrillas to surrender. Matrosos and the men came out and gave themselves up, but their leader stayed put. When a British corporal ordered him out, Absentiu shot him dead. The British threw a grenade into the cave and forced Matrosos back in to bring out the body. But he found Absentiu was still alive and joined him.
I enter in. I took the Tommy gun. I came out of the cave close. I shoot some bullets, and I said, now we are two. Come to catch us if you can. And we start the battle.
As the captured EOKA men watched, the British threw all they had, tear gas, boulders and explosives, at the cave. The battle raged for 6 hours.
Sometimes I was ready to die. I didn't afraid from death. Sometimes I was thinking about life.
With the press looking on, British patience came to an end.
And then I smelled, it was petrol. I said, oh my God, master is petrol.
The British set the petrol alight.
I was in front of the exit. The flame took me from the face. Instantly, I cover my face, my eyes, and my hands also burn. I feel them burn. Then again, the Absentiu, I saw him in flames, and he shouted me, "Don't be afraid." It was the last word I heard from Absentiu. I jump out of the cave with hope that a bullet will, somebody will shoot me. I didn't want to live, and I didn't want to die by flames.
Matrosos was found lying stunned at the bottom of the hill.
They removed some stones from the roof, and I saw Absentiu was burnt.
How did you feel about him?
Well, he was, from my side, a great respect. He was a man who was training us to love our country, to love our freedom. He was a brave man.
I was asleep in the hotel opposite the police station, and the Greek officer in charge of the police station rang me up saying, Mr. Denktash, all over Cyprus explosions are happening. Will you come to the police station? Well, I said, you must be a very nasty man to wake me up at this hour and to play on me the 1st of April Fool Days, you know, making jokes with me. He said, it's no joke, come down immediately, Mr. Denktash, for heaven's sake. And I went down, and there it was on the wireless from all over Cyprus, bombs here, bombs there, and they had started.
Degenes.
On the 1st of April, everyone looked upon this movement as the movement of misguided few under the guidance of the church, and even Greek police. There were very good CID men in the police force, excellent people, who looked upon it as just a criminal activity by misguided youth. And they were very effective in catching these people. But the terrorism towards informers, towards the police who followed them, was such that within 6 months, I know the people who were saying this is the criminal activity of a misguided few were saying we are EOKA too. And they looked upon it as a national activity, and no one dared to give information against them or to follow them.
As EOKA's grip tightened by EOKA, he created an auxiliary police force recruited from the 20% minority of the population, the Turkish Cypriots.
We were against EOKA. Britain was against EOKA. Therefore, we had a joint interest in seeing that EOKA did not succeed.
The only thing on which I insisted very strongly with Marshal Harding was that the auxiliary police...
There was an explosion at the information bureau of the Turkish consulate. A crowd had already gathered there, a crowd of Turkish Cypriot youth. And they all almost immediately decided that Greeks had done it. And they were swearing vengeance against the Greeks and so on.
The explosion started a night of rioting in Nicosia. Turkish Cypriots burned and looted Greek shops and homes. Soon EOKA counterattacked, and the fighting spread round the island. Greek and Turkish families, who had always lived as neighbors, now moved with all their possessions into separate areas. British soldiers put up barricades to keep the two communities apart. Partition was fast becoming a reality. For 3 years, two armies had been fighting a war. Now, ordinary people were being killed merely because they were Greeks or Turks.
Later on, a friend of mine, whose name will still be kept a secret, was to confess to me that he had put this little bomb in that doorway in order to create an atmosphere of tension so that people would know that Turkish Cypriots mattered.
The fighting raged for 3 months. More than 100 were killed.
They took me to the special branch. They took off all my clothes. They tied me by the back, my hands and back, my foot, and they beat me for a lot. Then they asked, somebody came, I mean a Cypriot came, a Cypriot officer who started beating me. He was always either drunk or taking drugs. He was really mad with me. He was crying one time, he was laughing the other time. I mean, he was a man unbalanced. He was taking a stick to put in my bottom. He was taking some cloth, put in the water, and then put it in my face so that not to breathe. He threw me down and he started dancing on my stomach with. He was wearing boots.
Nikos Koshis described 12 days of torture before interrogators abandoned efforts to make him talk. Averov and Zolu flew straight to London and found the British delighted with any solution which let Britain escape from Cyprus and hang on to 2 military bases. The British Foreign Secretary, Selwyn Lloyd, agreed to invite the Greek and Turkish Cypriots to a conference in London. The Turkish Cypriots also were delighted. The deal gave generous minority rights, guaranteed by a contingent of Turkish troops on the island.
Would you object to Makarios being the new president of the new Cyprus?
Well, I don't think it is for us to object. If the Greek community want him as a president, they can have him. We shall have our vice president in charge of our own communal affairs.
And you think it'll work all right?
Well, with goodwill on both sides, we don't see why it shouldn't work.
The British were more wary of Makarios. They had made one firm condition. The conference was to be only a signing ceremony. Details agreed in Zurich could not be changed. Makarios had promised Greek Prime Minister Karamanlis that he would accept the deal. But he invited 35 prominent Cypriots to London to join him. On the eve of the conference, he went to meet them to reveal the contents of the Zurich Agreement.
Two things became very obvious. The one, that it was not a question of enosis, and the other, that it was a question of a constitution which gave far too many rights to the minority community as we saw it at the time. And therefore, there was a lot of opposition to Makarios signing that agreement.
Outside Lancaster House, even the fog was lifting as Foreign Secretary Selwyn Lloyd arrived for the conference on Cyprus. To the governor of the island, Sir Hugh Foote, it was a near miracle that the hope of peace had dawned at last. Indeed, the presence in London of the much-discussed Archbishop Makarios, now indisputable fact, would have seemed quite out of the question only a week or two ago, yet here he was.
The conference began with each delegate playing his expected role. Selwyn Lloyd read out the Zurich agreements, Averov described them as the best possible, and Zolu agreed. Then Makarios spoke. He said while he accepted the agreements as a basis, he would like just a few amendments. The conference was stunned. He knew the deal was to be accepted as a package with no amendments. What was he up to? Makarios afterwards told a British minister a story to explain his bargaining tactics. When he was a young monk at Kiko Monastery, the abbot told him he must grow a beard.
He said it's really a test of the abbot's will and mine. He's going to send for the taxi to take me away.
That time the abbot did give in first. After the archbishop's bombshell, the conference was adjourned. Averov telephoned Karamanlis in Athens, who flew to London and ordered that Makarios be brought to meet him. He went from the airport to confront Makarios, who said he had promised, but he was sorry he had not. The Greeks passed on the warning to Makarios' delegation. If the Cypriots went on fighting, they would now be on their own. The delegation said they would back Makarios, whatever his decision. The conference met for its final session. War or peace in Cyprus hung on Makarios alone. Makarios was given one more night to accept the deal. Once before he'd held out too long with Harding, only to find the offer withdrawn and each later one worse. This time he had not consulted Grivas. If he was determined to fight on, how many Cypriots would follow him? The taxi had reached the monastery gate. No one had called him back. Was it time to give in?
And that was the most critical evening for the Archbishop. I remember I went to his room and I stayed with him until midnight. And I remember Archbishop was smoking. He was a heavy smoker, smoking and thinking. I told him good night and have a good sleep. And he told me, I wonder if I can sleep this evening. So next morning I went first and knocked his door, and he said, I have already given my answer. I have contacted the Greek representatives and I told them that I will sign. That was the story.
This day, a new chapter opens up for the people of Cyprus. a period of peace and prosperity and freedom. The two communities in the island, working closely together within God's guidance, will, I have no doubt, be able to develop the welfare of the island to their common benefit.
The Cypriots' struggle was entirely successful in the military sphere, as history will pronounce one day. However, its accomplishments were not duly exploited by the political leadership.
Grivas did not dare risk a clash with Makarios. He reluctantly ordered his fighters to lay down their arms. He went home to Greece, but he was to return later to plague Makarios. The Archbishop took over the government as President of the Independent Republic of Cyprus.
150 seneden beri devam edip giden Kıbrıs çıkmazına bugün son vermiş bulunuyor. Öteden beri sözümüz dinlenmez, sesimiz işitilmez, hayratlarımız nakes bulmazken 19 Şubat'tan itibaren Kıbrıs'ta tam bir cemaat olarak meydana çıkıyoruz. Eşit hak, müsaade yaşayış, efendi olarak bundan böyle bu adada kendi kendimizi idare edeceğiz.
After the end of the war? Oh yeah. I came here just to take my belongings, you know. Before I telephoned to the ADC and I asked him to give me my salary. He said, "Are you crazy?" he said. And I told him that if he denied to give my salary, I blow him up. He said, "Come on, the government house belongs to you now," he said.